This is the Round 2 podcast with Galen, Parker, and Stephanie Nicole, where we talk to big thinkers, big dreamers, and big idea havers. Quitting and failing are not the same thing, and we're going to show you why. Ladies and gentlemen, we are welcoming you back to a very special episode. This is the Round 2 podcast starring Stephanie and Nicole. Stephanie, say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. As she's really tight with the words, guys, but don't worry. It's because she bills by the second, and you might not have the funds. You might not have thick pockets for her to say a lot. This is a special episode, but before we go any further, if you have not done so, what are you doing? Feel free to hit that like and subscribe button so that you can stay up to date with the episodes, myriads of episodes. We've been doing this for a minute. We're talking to entrepreneurs. We're talking to business builders. We're talking to big idea havers, people who can help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are in the medical field, I need you to get real close to your speaker. Put your ear, rest your ear on the speaker. Put your eyes on the screen if you're on YouTube. Would you like to work 2 days a week? Would you like to do it 3 years out of training? Would you never like to work full time? Would you like to negotiate no nights and 24-hour shifts? If you would like to do any of those things, well, this is the episode for you. We have the doctor. Dr. Horn is in the building with us. You probably know her from the Black Doctor podcast, Black Doctor Coaching. She happens to be a black doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, round of applause for Dr. Horn. Full disclosure, you're used to our shows taking 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the time you get in your car to come to go. We're going to probably go over because Dr. Horn also happens to be my sister. She obviously got the brains and the beauty, and I just got the loud mouth, I guess. I don't know what I got the beard. I don't know. We were fighting in the womb, and she won all of the battles. So this is a great. But before we go in there, Stephanie, I got a very serious question for you.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was really good. I got some real estate under contract, and I found a flip for one of my partners. So really good weekend. What about you?
I followed the journey that you were on social media. There were some ups and some downs. You're like, under contract. I was like, we about to go. I was like, Stephanie about to loan me some money. We about to go to the club. And then, like with all things real estate, like 10 minutes later, it's like, we not under contract no more.
Under contract on 2 of my listings, and they declined the offers. I was like, what?
People, they're playing games, and it's, to me right now, it's probably like the easiest time to buy a house. When you really think about it, it's like you've got pretty low competition right now. There's lots of houses on the market right now. We're back to May of 2020 numbers as far as inventory. The rates are in the 6s. We're about to have this is Fed week. By the time you guys get this episode, because I'm slow editing, it'll be past that. But if you didn't know, this is Fed week. So September 18th to 19th, the Federal will meet. They are expected to drop rates due to the job numbers. So this is a great time if you're looking to buy. Everyone's like, I'm waiting for the inventory to go up. It's there. I'm waiting for the numbers to go down. They're down. Like, now we just waiting on you. We waiting for more excuses, I guess. So this is a great week. As for me, I had a weekend. You know that I don't like when people don't appreciate my time.
Yeah.
My time is expensive. And this has been happening more. We're having ghost and no shows. Like, people call me, I want to see a show. I want to see a house. I confirm it with them. We text back, like phone call and text, like 2 hours before the showing. See you there. Okay, great. And then they don't show up.
Oh, wow.
I'm about to put don't y'all know I got forewarned? I will pull up your address and pull up at your house. Oh, did you need a ride? Because I showed up and you like, are you in the hospital right now? Is there something wrong? See, I don't like that. I also had like a weird one where like the people, they just seemed like they couldn't be bothered. And I was just like, just trying to center myself. Wusa. As I was telling you before, I'm also giving off weird energy at open houses. So people were like, 3 times, people were like, so do you need anything to drink? Do you need something to eat? And I was just like, man, y'all are so kind. I don't take food from strangers, but thank you. I told that to a friend of mine. They're like, what do you mean you don't take food from strangers? Do you guys take food from strangers?
No. I'm going to be honest. I had a very interesting upbringing, so I pretty much eat whatever.
That is terrifying.
Yeah, I'm an easy target.
You must have a cast iron stomach. That's what my grandmother would say.
I
Just nothing make you sick.
I do.
I be seeing pictures on TikTok and YouTube. People's like, look at the cute cat walking across the stove. I'm like, excuse me, why is the cat anywhere near the stove or on the counters, on the tables? I don't do like I don't eat food at Costco when they try to give you treats away. Like when they were like, hey, you want to sample this? I'm like, you better sample these fists. You get away from me. You've been breathing on this food for 20 minutes. Y'all act like COVID didn't exist. Y'all also like, oh, would you like some cheese? I'm like, I would like everything to change about what's happening right now. Shen, do you eat Dr. Horn? What's the ruling? Should the general population, should the civilization, should we be eating strangers' potlucks?
See, I know too much. It's the kind of thing where, like, you just know too many things that can go wrong and all the different types of bacteria and things that transmit through those environments. So anytime I see stuff, I'm like, nope, I'm not, no, you're not going to get me with that. And I can
I'm with.
literally list the type of bacteria. I'm like, nope.
Ugh.
I
I
know
want
people
like,
naming me Galen.
hey, I'm trying to protect you. You're my friend. If we weren't friends, I would have been like, yeah, you should go ahead and eat up, enjoy,
I love that
enjoy.
for you.
Yeah, I was like, that's so exciting for
Yeah,
you. You're so
right.
adventurous. Your life is just filled with so much wonder and mystery. I'd be like, not it. So, ladies and
Living on the
gentlemen,
edge.
yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk to Dr. Horn a little bit just about past failures, where she's at in her business, how she got in there. Because if you heard the intro, it's very unique. We're used to thinking of doctors, the 24-hour shifts and just obviously most of it's from television. But people just like freaking out, and then she's talking about, oh, I only work 2 days out of the house. She doesn't work. It's not like she just works 2 days. It's just 2 days out of the house. She has a thriving, coaching business as well. So we're going to talk about a little bit how she got there. But the very first thing I always like to start on, you are the success, right? What you're doing right now is successful. You are the culmination of your ancestors' dreams. But there was probably one thing in your entire life that you thought this is going to be a great idea, and it didn't work. It imploded.
Uh,
It blew up. What was that thing?
I mean, medicine?
No, just
What do
life, a
you mean?
failure.
Medicine. Everything that you think it's not, that you think it is, it's not.
What?
Yeah.
All right. So, what was it about mess that you thought like, oh, it's going to be this, and it turned out to be that?
I feel like, okay, first of all, like I'm first generation American,
Boop, boop,
first
boop, boop, boop.
generation, like college student, like, people in our family, they're just doing their things. We first generation everything. So you're figuring everything out for yourself. And I feel like when you are in these backgrounds, these households, like you only have like five professions you know of, right? It's like you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, a teacher, a cop, firefighter, like the ones in the storybooks, the things you learn about when you're like five. So at some point, I decided, okay, I'm going to go into medicine. It's going to be great. I watched all of Grey's Anatomy in college. So I was like, I know exactly how this is going to be. I'm
I
going to
need a
be rich.
CT scan.
Right. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be smart. It's going to be amazing. Medicine is absolutely nothing like what they show on TV. Nothing. Right? Nobody's sleeping in those dusty call rooms. Okay. Like nobody's getting action on a twin bed from 1975 and they haven't changed the springs in the mattress. Like nobody's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just nothing like you envision. And I think for me, it was like I went through med school with this concept of like, yeah, this is hard now, but I'm going to become a doctor. So it's all going to pay off. It's going to be amazing. And I get into residency. I decided to be a pediatrician. So you train in whatever specialty you're going into. So signed up for my 3-year residency in pediatrics. I'm like, this is going to be great. It's really, really hard, right? Because now we're starting 24-hour shifts. We're doing night calls. We're doing all the stuff in the hospital. And I'm looking at my attending physicians, like our senior doctors who supervise us and sign off and teach us. And their life sucks. Like they're working weekends. They're
Ooh.
tired all the time. They're super cranky when we wake them up in the middle of the night, right? And I'm like, is this what I signed up for? Because that's not what I thought this was going to be. And by the time I finish training, it's like a house worth of student loan debt. Like I could own a very, very nice house for the amount of loans that I had. And I'm like, I don't even want to work in medicine. So honestly, I went into fellowship. I did a global health fellowship for 2 years where I just traveled around trying to figure out, is there someplace else I could work, a different country where this looks differently, a different environment where I could make this give me the fulfillment I thought it was going to give me? And that didn't happen. So I got to the end of fellowship and I didn't even apply for a new job. I just decided I don't know what to do next because I'm not signing up for this lifestyle that I see everybody else doing. And so
Yeah.
that I
Mm.
would say is the thing that was like my biggest disillusion. It's like this is not what I thought it was gonna
I do have a quick question. I know Stephanie's got a question, but
be. Yeah.
when you're talking about your fellowship in other countries, what are some of
Mhm.
the countries that you went to?
I only went to one country. So I was working between Southwest US in Navajo Nation. I was on the reservation in Arizona and New Mexico. And then I was spending the other half of the year in Liberia and West Africa.
That's right. Okay,
Rural.
I
We're
remember
both
this.
very rural.
I remember this conversation when you were gonna go, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Liberia," and I was like, "You gonna do what now?" And I was like Googling. I was like, I was like,
Like, where
why?
is that at?
And then didn't it get cut short by a little thing called COVID?
It sure did. It sure did.
How?
I was in Liberia in March of 2020.
Man, that is crazy. One of my favorite stories that I tell people is that so in January I got where'd Stephanie go? Oh, there she is. In January I got stupid sick, and I remember
Mm.
texting you, and you were like, "Oh, well, it could be this," and you were the very first person that ever mentioned COVID-19. I had never heard of it, and you were like, "There's this thing going around," but in that time it was like foreign country disease. I'm like, oh yeah, well the Africans, of course they got it. And then like fast
They
forward,
didn't
literally
have
like
it.
2 months. That's what I yeah, and that's what was funny. It's like they didn't have it.
They didn't have
Like 2 months later, like everyone's like COVID-19. You're like, I'm coming back, and I was just like, oh, this is real. Okay, okay, okay.
it.
How was the transition from being in Africa back to the U.S.?
Terrible.
Oh,
So let's paint the picture. I was, at this point, I was in my first year of fellowship. I had done my first 6 month stint in Arizona on the reservation, like I said, and then I had moved to Liberia. And where I was in Liberia was a rural village, you could say, right? So there's like you land in the capital of Liberia, it's like a city, but still like economically disabled because they had a civil war, and also the infrastructure just doesn't exist. Like people don't have 24-hour electricity, people don't have running water all the time. So that's like the general layout of the country. So then you go
ooh.
rural and you definitely don't have those things, right?
You're like then you go rural, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm about 5 hours outside of the capital city, okay, by like dirt road, okay, unpaved, muddy road in like Land Rovers, like, to get to this village. And the hospital I'm at is the only hospital in the county serving 80,000 people, and there are two doctors on staff. And I was one of them. Well, technically, we had a medical director, but he didn't see patients. So, three doctors on staff, but two seeing patients. And people had a hard time accessing this place. So, when COVID hit, my fellowship was through University of California, San Francisco. So, risk management legal team starts jumping in because they're like,
Come on back.
we need
Come
to
on back.
figure out if we got like, is this in our policy? What do we do? So they're like, okay, we're probably going to have to get you out of there because if airports are shutting down, it's in our policy that we have to be able to like medevac you or take care of you. And also, Liberia doesn't have, like I said, 24-hour electricity, which means there's no ventilation support at the hospital. So people were getting sick with COVID and needing ventilators. That doesn't exist in a country like Liberia. So they
Mm.
were like, oh, we're going to try to get you out. I'm like, great. They couldn't get me out. All the flights kept getting canceled the week they decided. I ended up having to book my own flight through a Nigerian airline. And I know we talk a lot about, like there's a lot of stigma around Nigerians. I know I have a lot of Nigerian friends, but like there's a lot of things. And so I go to the airport, there's an airline, there's a number on the airline door written in handwriting on a paper. It says call this for tickets. So I called a number, a guy answers. He's like, bring cash to the airport to buy this ticket. I'm like, this sounds really crazy. I don't know, but I'm desperate to get out because at this point I've tried to book flights through Brussels, through England, through France, and everything just gets canceled every day. We're booking new flights. And so meet this guy outside the airport. The airport's not even open yet, right? I can't go inside with him. So I have to literally hand this man cash outside of an airport
I'll
and
be right back.
hopefully I get a ticket out of this. I'm like, great. So he does, I'm watching through the glass and the security's like, ma'am, get away from the airport. I'm like, it's not open. I'm
Get
like,
back.
but I gave the man the money. It's crazy.
Why does the airport sounds like a club in Petersburg? It's like just give them some
Right.
money,
Yeah.
hope it opens up, hoping somebody. They're like, no, I got you. No, yeah, you be good. And I'm like,
You just wait. You just wait. I mean, they ended up giving me a ticket. Mind you, the ticket receipt was for far less than I had paid that man. So obviously they gouged me. But yeah, but my organization like reimbursed me. They were like, whatever, to pay them whatever, just get out. So I was able to fly into Ghana with that airline, and then from Ghana I flew through England and then through Jersey to get back to the US. And I flew into the epicenter because I flew back into New York, which was the
yeah,
epicenter of COVID, which I was like, y'all took me out of my rural village where nobody had COVID and nobody was coming in with COVID to New York where everybody has
everybody got
COVID and
COVID.
everybody is dying. And then they were like, we're going to find you a new assignment. So we're going to actually send you back to Navajo Nation, which was the second hardest hit, highest mortality location in the country. So
I
my
read that.
anxiety level was on like 45 out of 10. And I ended up going to this hospital in New Mexico, and I was like, this is going to be the worst ever because I'm a fellow. I have no power, no voice. I'm new to this place. They're just going to stick me in places. Like we had dentists and ophthalmologists doing stuff with COVID, and they don't even see the rest of the body like that. So
They're just
it
like,
was really
we
hard.
just they. You got a doctor. He's on YouTube trying to be like, all right, so let me. He's like, sorry, I usually put braces on people, so this is all
Right.
new to me. He's
Yeah,
like, I'm a
it was
vet.
yeah, no, it was like everybody was doing everything and it was just the most chaotic time of our lives and we didn't have enough like PPE. People were like I actually ended up running a black market for PPE out of the church across the street from the hospital
Black doctor market.
because yes, because there were people willing to do donations, but the hospital wouldn't approve it unless it came from specific vendors or like vetted sources. So rather than take these donations, they were having doctors reuse their mask for the whole week. So you would have like a Monday mask, a Tuesday mask, and everyone had them on paper bags on the shelf in the doctor's office room. So you'd like, oh, this is my Monday mask. This is my Tuesday mask. So I just started collecting donations as part of like this COVID outreach project we were doing. And a lot of PPE came in through that. So we had a ton of doctors just hitting me up for PPE. And we were like at the back door of the church. I was handing out N95s and gowns and boots and everything. It was an insane time. So that was my transition back to America in COVID.
What a wild time was I haven't heard someone say N95 in so long. That just brought back
Right.
so many memories. I was like, oh my goodness, N95s. I remember like me sitting in my office by myself and I had N95s around me. I'm just like, you never know.
Yeah.
It's like, there's actual doctors probably need these. And I'm just like, well, they ain't here right now. So they are. 70, what question did you have?
Yeah, I wanted to go back to, what you said, how your experience being a doctor was like when you got into medicine, you thought it was going to be one thing. It ended up being something that you didn't want to be a part of. How did you transition or make it something that you could actually do? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much a continuation of this story is that essentially, although we were like these frontline people, right? It was like again, we were put in harm's way, right? The hospital didn't have our back, right? We didn't have equipment. We were working these crazy hours. Like I was in adult ICU. I haven't seen an adult in like years, right? And it
Yeah.
was the same premise as like residency where it was like I'm watching people who are my seniors do jobs that they don't feel good about, they don't feel safe in their job, they're tired, they're exhausted, all of these things. And so when I left fellowship after the second year and I came back to the US, I just didn't apply for a job because I was like, well, what job am I going to apply for? All
Mm,
these jobs sound like they suck. And I felt like I was so burnt out. And I was just like, I don't even feel like I would do a good job because I don't even want to be there. And who wants to, you can't be a doctor and not want to be there, right? Like you're like, you can't just decide, I'm just going to do a crappy job. Like it doesn't work like that in medicine,
I'm gonna
right?
mail it
Like,
in today.
right. It's like you have to show up and be on all cylinders. And so I came home to the US and I was like, well, everybody's burnt out. Everyone's complaining about burnout. And of course, peak COVID. So that just amplified that. And I'm like, what are we going to do about burnout? Like, can I find a solution to this? Like I'm talking to other
Mm.
doctors and it really came down to this like loss of autonomy, this loss of like being able to control our own lives and actually practice medicine the way we wanted to practice it.
Mm.
Right. So, reality hits, right? As I'm like a month or two into my homestay, I moved back in with my mom and
Shout out to moms.
bills, right? Like bills, student loans, the reality of things. Like I said, I have a lot of student loan debt. And so I'm like, okay, I have to find a job. Let me find like a contract position, something temporary that's going to allow me to get money, but maybe not totally suck the life out of me. And I'm like, okay, if I have to go back into medicine, what's the structure that needs to be in place so that I don't feel like it's self-betrayal and I don't feel like I'm not totally losing myself and I still will show up wanting to serve the people who are coming to see me. What does that look like? And so from that's where I came up with this, like, I cannot work nights. I cannot do 24-hour calls. Let me just do part-time. I'll do 4 days a week instead of 5 to 7. I'll do, like set hours, have a really set schedule and just do that so that when I show up, I feel like, okay, I have some
Top of
level
your
of
game.
control. Yeah. So that, and then I had them write that into the contract. So I'm like, okay, well, this is my contract. Let's structure it this way because I don't want nobody coming back to me telling me some nonsense about how I got to do nights and weekends all of a sudden. Like, no, we're not doing that.
You're like,
So I'm like, let's
let's
set it
show these
up.
receipts.
Yeah, I'm like, set it up. Let's do it. And that was the first time I realized that if I determined how I practiced and if I set the parameters that felt like they were preserving for me, then I was actually a better doctor. Like I had much better patient
Mm.
interactions. That just obviously leads to better patient outcomes. Like all of the things are in place if I take care of myself. So that's actually what made me end up being back in clinical medicine, which like, oh, this is not so bad if I have these things in place,
If
if
you
I
have
do these
control.
things. Yeah. If I protect myself, right? And that's what I think leads to sustainability in the medical career is being able to practice in a way that feels like it's integrity with what like my values and things like that.
After you've obviously now let's move into the fact that you're doing coaching, correct? Is
Yeah.
it because you were able to see what you needed, but then you're looking at a lot of your peers and seeing
Yeah.
like, wow, they're floundering. You're thinking you don't have to do this. I took
Hmm.
note of one of the things that you do. You help people like negotiate. Like, is this contract fair? Is this what I
Yeah.
deserve? Is this serving me? How did you kind of
Yeah.
move into that direction?
Yeah. So part of this like exploration period where I was, working part time and then also trying to look at what was the cause of burnout was talking to a lot of other doctors and listening to like their stories, right? And everybody's complaints are similar, right? Like we get into medicine because we love to serve people. You have this golden heart thing. You're feeling the altruism, right? It's all about serving the people. We want to give back. Life is so great. We just want to be in peace, like all of that. But that gets really abused in medicine. And I think people don't realize how much medicine in America is corporatized, right? Like
Yeah.
we live in a capitalist society,
No,
everything's about money. Yeah, so it becomes like this job where they want you to see more and more people per day, right? That's more patients per hour. They're churning out people, they're double booking your appointments. They're like, and how good of a job can you do in 10 minutes, right? Like how can you solve all the problems, advise, give your patient the education they need? Like all of these things just don't
Mm.
happen in a short span of time. And people were losing their sense of purpose because it's like you're in a job, you could be doing a better job, you should be doing a better job, right?
You
And
took an
that is
oath to
not
do a great
actually
job. Yeah.
right. Like, and that's not actually what you get to do. And so having those conversations with other doctors made me realize, like, oh, they also don't see that they need to stand up for themselves. They need to advocate. They need to start asking for what they need at work, right? And that if they do that, then you lose some of this like desire to run out of here and not be at work and stuff like that. So I started doing that, coaching other doctors in like salary negotiations, in hours, days of the week, things like that. And really just, I mean, it starts with them realizing like they get to ask for stuff because no one ever asks us what we want, right? Like we're just like, you go in and you see the patient, you just do the thing.
Is there
Um,
a fear? Like,
yeah.
or are they just like afraid to ask?
Oh, everybody's like, doctors are humans, right? Like
Yeah.
how most people are afraid to ruffle feathers, to like ask for too much, to like seem ungrateful, right? They don't want to lose their job. Some people think it's risky, right? There's a risk assessment that everyone's doing that is, if I ask, then they might fire me or they might find someone to replace me. They'll find someone cheaper, easier, more compliant. There's just a lot of fear, and people don't know how to combat that. So they let that fear rule how they show up to work until it ruins their job, that ruins their career.
Man, I don't think we ever think of doctors like this because it's like we always think,
Yeah.
oh, the doctors know everything. I try to
Yeah.
avoid you guys pretty much all the time, and so
Yeah.
like you never would think about like, oh man, the doctor's probably like underpaid and overworked because on our side we see the doctor for 4 seconds and we're just like, that's it, and the doctor's
I
Yeah.
probably like, I don't want to see you. I'd love to see you for longer, but there's
Right.
50 people in this room. And there's only one of me.
Okay, so I think the reason why we don't understand doctors is because we'll come in for 15 minutes, get seen quickly, then get a bill that's
Mhm.
like outrageous. I've
Yeah.
seen people get bills for $20,000. So in our mind, you just got paid $20,000 to see me for
Nope.
15 minutes. Yeah, so that's why we feel like doctors are rich, they're overpaid. We don't really,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
think because the the money that we look at is so much, we don't care that you are working a whole lot because
I
it's
think that's true.
Yeah.
People are just
Yeah.
like harsh.
like just
Also,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have been
Yeah.
a doctor. You should have been a CEO of an insurance company. Because if somebody's
Seriously.
getting paid, we know
It's
it's
them.
Anthem and Aetna and all those companies. I'm just
oh,
like
Definitely.
the doctor's like, oh, it actually costs $10, and Anthem's like, well, let's just
We'll
say it
charge about
didn't.
5,000.
Yeah, it's always like crazy numbers. That's what, like when I go to the doctor, I'm like, cash buyer. I'm a cash
Yeah.
buyer. I have no money. I'll pay you
Yeah.
cash. And the doctor's like, you gonna pay cash? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, perfect. Here we go. I'm like, bet.
Yeah.
I learned that from Mr.
No,
Jared Davis, ladies and gentlemen.
it's
wow.
so crazy. Like the medical system, because we are the face of the medical system, right? Like everybody comes in, you see the doctor, you think that we're the ones in control, and we're not. Especially in the hospital, right? Or even in a
Mm,
clinic, especially if the clinic's owned by some kind of corporate entity, which most clinics are. Most hospitals have bought out of like all the big, they're all big conglomerates now,
the
right? They're not like
HCA's,
really,
Monsecors here. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of HMOs, there's a lot of like just organizations. And so like they tell me, okay, they control the schedule. I don't even pick how many patients I see or how long the
Mm.
visits are. So you might say, okay, your appointment's at 8 o'clock. You come in at 8 o'clock. You have to be triaged by the staff, weight, height, blah 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 blah. Next person scheduled 8:15. So the fact that I don't even get into the room until like 8:10 because you've gone through the front door with the billing and the insurance, and then you get measured and then weight or blood pressure. By the time I see you, there's about 5 minutes left in that slot, right?
Hmm.
So then I'm
Mm.
seeing you, I'm trying not to be late for the next person because by the time I get in the room for the next person, they're like, I've been waiting 30 minutes, right? You're like, I have no control over the schedule. And I think the other reality check I had was even in medical school when I did my surgery rotation first. It was the first time I was in the hospital, and the surgeons, like, let's say you pay $1,000 for to get your appendix removed, right? It's like, okay, there's the cost for the OR. All the OR staff gets paid out of that. All the equipment cost comes out of that. By the time the surgeon gets paid, they make about $60 to remove your appendix. And you're
Hmm.
like, this surgeon is rich. And it's like, no, they're not. And actually, if the cost, you'll see that for doctors, even ER physicians, other types of physicians, if the cost, all of the services, all of the staff, everything totals to even more, then they get paid even less, right? Like they're literally the last. So
Mm.
when people talk about, it's so funny because the internet, everybody on the internet is like, these doctors are just doing it for the money. They're pushing these meds for the money. I'm like, I make no money off of pushing you medication. That's pharma. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't control that pricing. I don't control how that works. I don't even know if
I'm
your
like, you want to be
insurance
in pain or
covers
not?
it.
Don't take the pill.
Don't,
Don't take the pill.
right. They're like, they're pushing this agenda. They want to keep us sick. I'm like, how does that help me? Because my schedule was already packed. I'm already like doing the things to try to not get you to come in, right? And like I'm trying to help you be healthy. I'm trying to
The
like
doctor's like, I
make
told you to put the pork chop down 2 years ago.
I told
I,
you to do the
I,
behavior thing. Nobody wants that. You want the some people want the pill. They're like they come in, they're like, they didn't do anything for me because I didn't push the medication. And then for the people I offer the medication to, they're like, they're just pushing pills. It's like you can't win, right? And that
mm,
weighs down on doctors, right? So you have all these people that are like, I have zero control over how this works, yet I cover all of the blame. I cover all of the liability. If I get sued for doing X, Y, and Z, even if it wasn't my structure, even if it wasn't my protocol, I could lose my license. I may never be able to practice again. So there's just like
nope.
a lot of stuff that happens, right? And nobody feels sorry for us. And I don't think you should, right? We make a choice. We decide to go into the field. We are making decisions, understanding how everything goes. But I think that that's why I like the coaching business is because if you have to take on this liability and if you have to decide how to like how you're going to do this thing where your license is on the line and your livelihood is on the line, then you need to start saying this is how it's going to go.
I dictate
So
some of this. I control some of
yeah,
this. Yeah.
I get to control it. And for me, I'm like, I tell my staff all the time, I'm like, do not double book me. I don't care what is happening. Okay. Don't double book me, right? I need to be able to spend time with certain people. If you see that this patient has a complaint of depression, do not put them in a 15-minute 6 slot. That is not a 15-minute conversation. I don't care
You're
what's
like, so
happening.
you're feeling depressed? Okay. Well, it's
You're
been good to
feeling
see ya. Yeah. Sadness is something that
sad,
happens to all of us. So we're going to see you
right?
next week. It's like,
Right. It's like, I'm just gonna write you a referral and how about some meds? And like for me, I'm like, I have to be able to speak up that way. And I can only work in environments that even allow me that voice. So choosing
mm,
my job has to become much becomes much more like specific and intentional. Where I work, how I work, I have to be able to choose the job well to begin with so that I even enter an environment where my opinion on those things is valued and respected. Because there's places that don't care. Like I have doctors that I work with now that are like, I told them not to book my schedule this way, and they still do it. And so all of those
mm.
things are like what makes me like passionate about coaching other physicians, right? It's like, no, we get to, if you're the face of a thing, you get to decide, right?
No,
Like
that's true.
I'm
That's true.
I'm the prize here. I'm the skill set.
I'm
I'm
the
going
catch.
to I'm the catch, right? Like I'm going to determine how I get to like what my reputation is with my patients. If those people are going to sue me, they're going to sue me because I decided, not because you decided and made a wrong decision and now I'm paying the cost for it. Like let that be on me. So,
So, what we always like to give our guests a nugget, some sort of nugget. Now, maybe it's to be an entrepreneur. Maybe
yeah.
it's a young doctor. Maybe it's a kid that just watched, Chicago MD or Grey's Anatomy. Hey, what's your favorite doctor show?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't watch any of them anymore. I used to be Grey's Anatomy before I went to med school.
Okay.
No, you.
Scrubs
No, it's
is
The
always
Good
like a
Doctor.
funny one. I don't watch I have never watched an episode of The Good Doctor, so I could not give you an impression.
I don't like any of those shows where it's like, here's this doctor with autism, or this doctor with a bad attitude, or this doctor with a
Yeah.
drug habit. Look how he navigates his life. I'm like, I don't want to be the patient he messes up on.
No, not
But
drug habit. They don't
oh,
drug
what
That
was
was
it? What
House.
House?
House.
House? House was
He had a
popping
drug
those
habit.
pills like he was.
Yep.
House did not care. House was doing surgeries and he was high as a kite. He was just like,
Yep.
Oh my God. But
Um,
wait, real
so
quick,
there's a
real quick. Is is there situations where your doctor may be addicted?
Yeah, of course there are
yeah.
doctors with addictions. The doctors are human. But the thing is, if
Look at
like they're
Stephanie.
not allowed to
You just blew
practice, she's
Stephanie's
like,
mind.
what's happening? Generally speaking, doctors with any kind of addiction are technically not allowed to practice, right? Like if they like most people would report that because that would be crazy. Like if you see someone, it's like if you see something, say something, right? It's
One for
definitely one of
you,
those
one for me.
scenarios,
One for you, one for
right?
me.
Yeah. Now, like you would definitely report a colleague that you think is in trouble or is having some addiction thing. There are very few programs that even allow them to reintegrate back into medicine even after recovery. I think it's a really hard thing to come back from as a physician. But yeah, of course, like people have access to, you get access to meds. You're in a high stress job with unlimited access to Xanax. There are definitely people who are addicted.
Oh man, that's tough because it's like I didn't think about just like regular antidepressants. Like we
Yeah.
always think about like opioids, but all right.
Opioids or
So
something. Yeah.
there's a young kid. He's watching these shows. He's thinking to himself, "I'd like to be a doctor. I'd like to have this freedom." What are some tips that you can give them? Let's give them three. What are some three tips that you think, man, I wish I knew this going in. This is something you should definitely know or just be aware of.
Yeah. I would say if we're talking to the like pre med students or like just, or even the medical student, I would say if you decide to pursue medicine, know that it is a job, it is not your identity. That is a one thing,
Mm.
right? People do not separate. That's the thing. Like doctors have a all-consuming identity. People see you as this one thing, this infallible thing, this thing
Tell
that
us more,
doesn't
Dr. Horn.
change, right? And then the other thing I would say is like pick your career based on the life you want to have outside of that, right? So surgeons don't have lives outside of the hospital very rarely,
Mm.
right? Like they go to work at 4 a.m. and they're there for 12 plus hours, right? Like more, they like there are certain types of doctors whose hours, the demands on their lifestyle is very high. It's it's actually what makes things like dermatology and plastics like really competitive specialties to get into because the lifestyle is good. Like there's no dermatological emergency. Oh my God, my acne. I'm going to call you at 3 a.m. No. Like you just go to work from your regular hours. So I would say if you're going to pick something, envision your whole life outside of medicine too, right? Like, do you plan to have a family? Do you want to spend time like vacationing or traveling or whatever? And then really pick your specialty based on the lifestyle you want to have.
I like
That is a good one. I wouldn't even think about that.
me neither.
All right, Steph, what you got?
I am just like mind blown. You have answered pretty much all my questions. I'm just shocked that any of this stuff is happening. Like you have really
Yeah.
shined a light on the real life of being a doctor.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's. I think it's fascinating because there's certain professions where it's just like you don't know anything, you don't have any clue. You know what you see on TV
Yeah.
is not real, but it's like you. I don't know any happy doctors. Like you know what I mean? Like there's obviously happy
Or
doctors, right?
dentists.
Yeah, it's like there's never people who are just like, yes, I feel so fulfilled, and it's like, and I think a lot of it is the workload,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
people's in their yuck mouths, and people are disgusting. But I think a lot of it is just like there, as you mentioned earlier, that sustainability of just being burnt out, overworked, underappreciated. Man, I couldn't even imagine. All right, I do have a
Yeah.
question for you though. With your schedule, obviously you work 2 days in the hospital and you're doing your coaching. How do you make time for, let's say, like a significant other, or travel, or fun, entertainment, or a significant other, or travel, or a significant other? How do you make time for stuff like that?
I mean,
The
everything
the
is about
Ghanese
choice.
people want to know.
Everything is literally about choice, right? So, for me, I even the way I build my coaching practice, I didn't want to build it in the same way that I saw like medicine and other things constructed because that's what led to my burnout, right? Working all the hours, working weekends, working nights. And it's really easy to do that as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Spend every waking moment like enveloped in the thing because it's your livelihood, you're trying to make money, right? Like you wanted to succeed, you're invested in that way. So I had to be very conscious about how I was structuring my time when I was working on my coaching practice, because it's so easy for that to just bleed into every other part of my life, especially because I do it at home. So weekends,
Mm.
mornings, nights, like sometimes in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh, I have a notepad next to my shower. I write down like ideas. Like you can be working all the time if you're not aware of it. So I think it's
That
really about
That's
intentionality
good.
and like paying attention to what you want in your life. So for me, I'm like, I don't want to be single forever, right? I don't want to be like, I don't want to have a lot of regrets. And I think in medicine too, because you spend all of your 20s becoming a doctor, like you go to college and you go to med school, then you go to residency. If you do a fellowship, like you could literally be in medicine for 15 to 20 years before you even see the light of day. Right. And so all of your friends are living their lives, they're having families, they're traveling. You can end up feeling like you've missed a chunk, right?
Missed out
You've
on it all.
missed
Yeah.
out on things. Yeah. So I think like deciding what is really important, because when I think about even my time in medicine, the things that I remember are the things outside of the hospital, like time I got to spend with family and friends, trips that I took, like things that I did that were like really
Dinners with your
meaningful.
favorite sibling.
Dinners with my favorite bro, my twinny bro, and other, excursions. Um, but yeah, like there were, those are the memories. So when I even designed like my entrepreneurial life and even my medical life, it was like, how am I going to do this in support of what's important to me and making time for my partner, making time to travel. So at this point, I've literally traveled probably every month this year to a different place.
That's what I'm talking
Um,
about.
and I make time. I'm always I take so much. I'm out so much. Like I'm out of the
She
country so
outside.
much.
She
I'm
outside.
outside.
She for real. She outside for real.
Um, yeah,
You
and
and Stephanie,
I'm
not
definitely
me.
out.
yeah, like right. You wanna create that life. Like the whole point of it, whole point of becoming an entrepreneur for me, and the whole point of coaching is to teach other people to live that kind of life that feels really good to them and has some balance. And so I would be a huge hypocrite if I didn't also create balance in my own life. And so I just have to be really strict with myself about the hours that I'm working and like structuring it in a way that allows me to be productive. I have help. Like I have a VA team. I cannot do all the things, and so hiring help and having people support me also allows me to put stuff down, because it's like a trauma response to try to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's trying
Ooh,
to fight that.
that's funny. Well, man, this has been excellent. I love that we've covered a myriad of topics of just kind of like helping people understand one the real life, as Stephanie put it, the real life of a doctor. We didn't know this stuff.
No, I did.
We
Yeah.
don't, yeah, we didn't know this stuff. But it also gives people a lot of things to think about. You guys have now arrived at your job. You're probably late for work because you've just been sitting in your car listening to all of this. You're probably going, you're like, I need to rethink, because it doesn't just apply to medical field. There's a lot of like, we're in commission only businesses where you can work yourself to death all the
Yeah.
time. And then you're just like, you wake up and you're like, wait, what happened? What did I miss? And it's like everything. So, guys, please tune into this lesson. Step or Shen, what is the name of your podcast? If they want to listen to it, where should they
Yeah.
go?
It's called the Black Doctor Collective Podcast, and Black is spelled BLK. And my name is the same on Instagram, on Facebook. So the Black Doctor, the BLK Doctor. And they can listen to the podcast. It's weekly episodes every Tuesday morning. And I literally talk about entrepreneurship. I talk about negotiating a lot. And I find even people who are not doctors get a lot out of the negotiating component, because the principles are the same regardless as to what field you're in. So if you're thinking about how to choose a job, if you're thinking about, negotiating within your job that you're already in, maybe you've already signed a crappy contract and you're like, how do I get out of this
How
thing?
do I
Like,
fix
I
this?
talk about, right. I'm like, oh, abort mission. Um, I talk about all of those topics, and it's just important, I think, for anybody who's in a career that has the potential to be all consuming, which a lot of our jobs do,
Yeah.
just the society we live in. All of these concepts are really important, where it's like, how do you reprioritize yourself, and how does that impact your career, your sustainability of career, and how
Mm.
you manage your overall lifestyle.
Nice. I like it. Stephanie, if they need to reach you, is it the Black Stephanie? How do they reach you?
Stephanie Nicole RVA on everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, you already know it's the what is it? It's the underscore Galen Parker RB. I forget already. I need to get it more succinct. I don't know what I'm gonna do. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you guys for downloads. We got a lot of feedback recently for some past episodes. Thank you guys for tapping in. If you are an entrepreneur and you think that you've got something that you can contribute, feel free to reach out to Stephanie Nicole. She's already told you what her Instagram is. There's 117,000 followers on her, so that's the one you need to tap in. You can DM her, and then maybe she'll respond because she's kind of a big deal. My name is Galen Parker. This is Around Two Podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.